Overwatch is no stranger to hero reworks. There have been plenty over the course of the last 8 years, and I am going to break down all of them and tell you which ones I think are good, which ones are still good, and which ones definitely didn't quite hit the mark so much. Now, you are going to notice that there are different types of reworks. There are some mini reworks in here. There are some full-blown reworks. There are some characters that have gotten multiple reworks, so we're going to break down. So this is just kind of like pretty informal, and it's a little hard to tell like which reworks, especially the older ones, were good nowadays, because a lot of them were made for 6v6 and now they've been kind of stitched together for 5v5. So it's a little weird to be like, okay, this character got reworked in like 2017. How are they still working today? How is that rework still successful today? So we're going to be a little like kind of half and half. Like, I think part of my analysis will be like, how does it work now? And part of my analysis will be like, well, how did it work then? And we'll kind of get there. I'm going to run you real quick through the categories I have here. So only needs balance changes means that I think that the characters are good to go. They don't need to be reworked. No parts of their kit need to be reworked anymore. They are pretty much golden. They just need to be tweaked and tuned, because they're going to be some, I don't think many characters are in a perfect spot on this list, but they could be in theory, in my opinion. Almost there means that there's like one element keeping it from being a really good rework, and we'll talk about what that is. The right direction is stuff that I see the vision, but in practice isn't quite working out like I think they want it to. Good in their time are reworks that have been long past, that maybe we don't see as positive right now, but at the time was considered pretty good and a good direction for them. Basically the same character. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. It didn't really do much. What Are We Doing is just like a rework that's just completely like, I don't even know what the idea really is or anything like that. And then Straight Up Bad, I think, are reworks that are just like, I either think it made them worse, less fun, something like that. There aren't going to be too many of those. But let's just go ahead in order from what I have here. And speaking of the Straight Up Bad reworks, I think Torb will probably end up being the only one in this category. Now, don't get me wrong. Launch Torb, this is when Torb got Overload and Molten Core, and he didn't have to like do levels on his turrets, right? That's what this Torb rework was. Torb did not function in the game of Overwatch. Like, he had too many random things, and that's just not how you played Overwatch. So this was trying to get him to play regular. The problem, I think, was that he was reworked so early before they really had a good grasp about what an Overwatch character should kind of be designed like, or what tools they should have, that I think they ended up just making him like less interesting, more linear, less useful. Sure, the ult is fine, but it's a place and forget ult. I think it's definitely more useful overall than the previous ult. I don't even remember the name of it, from level 3 turret, basically. Leveling up your turret was really frustrating, unfun. You couldn't throw it. You had to place it directly in front of you. For a character with no mobility, that's really tough sell for Torbjorn. Giving him a self-survivability tool, I think, was fine. The problem is that it's so boring and linear. It's just hit the button and get some... Now it's overhealth, but at the time it was armor. Yeah, Torb is just really kind of worthless. I think the turret character archetype needs a lot of work to be like viable or like usable now, and making an interesting design. And yeah, I think Torb was more interesting when he could throw health packs and he had to manage his turret and like actually hammer it, and the turret having levels was cool. Having to think about when the turret's doing things, it wasn't great. Let me be clear. The scrap mechanic was just all over the place, going and grabbing scrap. Yeah, it wasn't great, but I think the rework was just not anywhere close, and I desperately think that he needs another one in the process. And before I get too far, there are going to be a couple characters which I kind of just left out a little bit, because yeah, there are some characters that like barely got reworked that are on this list, and a couple characters that are in the same boat that aren't here, like Reaper, for instance, when he got his passive, which basically changed him. those, like, I'm not really concerned about those really small reworks so much. They're probably all going to end up in basically the same character or good in their time. But, you know, some of them are just going to slip through the cracks. There's been a lot of changes to these characters. Okay, Mercy. This is going to be when Mercy first got Valk, and Res was put on a cooldown as opposed to Ultimate, right? I think that Mercy's design is pretty flawed and it's really frustrating. But at the time, and I'm not gonna take this into like Moth meta consideration. We're gonna say, like, you know, it's not the current balance. It's not the balance of when it launched, because she was overtuned when she launched. But I'm going to say that this was a good rework at the time, because there was counterplay to res. No, there wasn't. I forgot about that. I forgot that it was instant res. But once res was like, you had to channel it, there was technically counterplay to res. It was only one at a time. It couldn't refresh, right? Valkyrie is just a more fun ult than mass res, because mass res was extremely frustrating. It made her playstyle be less so as that I'm going to hide back and, like, you know, make them waste ults and then come get everybody. It made her play like an actual hero in this video game, which was good. Now, I don't like how Mercy plays now. She's very frustrating. It's just a frustrating character design. There's a lot going on with her. But I don't think that takes away the fact that this rework was absolutely necessary. Like, this was super needed at the time. Yeah, I think that's Mercy. I think that's pretty much it. Hanzo. This, if you are unfamiliar, it's when he lost Scatter Arrow and he got Storm Arrow, and he also got his Leap, right? Makes him more mobile, gives him a better niche as the kind of like mobile sniper. And that's about it. Like, it's not too much of a rework. But I think that this was almost there. Like, I think that, you know, obviously one-shot characters, right? It's a contentious topic, but at the time, you have to remember that Scatter Arrow was random. Let's be real. It's a random ability. It just destroys instantly. Completely melted tanks and shields, and they wanted to keep that kind of like shield breaking like niche on Hanzo, so they gave him Storm Arrow. Now, the reason I'm saying it's almost there is because I think Storm Arrow is a really uninteresting ability most of the time. Now, there is some skill to it when you're trying to hit squishies. I think it's good, like burst, high pressure, but its best use is boring. And I think that's like the one thing that holds it back. But Hanzo getting that leap and having that mobility, being able to kind of pop up from anywhere and potentially hit you, it gave him a much better niche, and made this character a lot more fun, made him stand out from the peers. I think Hanzo, this was a really good rework. It's just the problems with Hanzo now are that we do not like one shots typically. And Hanzo has had his fair share of ups and downs recently. Trying to rework Hanzo, I don't think they need to fully rework him. I think just a couple balance changes and then looking at Storm Arrow about how that functions, that would put him in probably a pretty good spot and keep what is actually fun about this character. So that's kind of what I'm thinking there. Wrecking Ball, this is the very recent rework where he got the grapple and the shield stuff. And let's just get out of the way. He's the same character. He has some more options, sure, but it doesn't change his game plan. I just threw him on here because I remember that they were calling it a rework, and then they kind of stopped calling it a rework because I think they realized that it was kind of not much. But he's here. He's the same. He's perfectly fine. There's no problems with it. I didn't like it initially, but, you know, it didn't really change anything about Ball. I think Ball needs a little bit of help. I would like to see more stuff, but at the end of the day, he's still Wrecking Ball. All right, Bastion. Bastion is so weird to me because, first off, thematically, that sticky grenade kind of makes no sense with his aesthetic, or Torb's aesthetic, honestly. I don't know where that idea came from. It just feels super out of place, in my opinion, for this like rusty old robot and this like stuck in his ways, you know, old engineer to have this like new like sticky technology, you know, just some weirdo thing in his kit. So that's something. The Mortar Strike ult, I think ults that make you leave the fight completely are just generally not very good. And in fact, his old ultimate was like way more fun and way more interesting. It one-shotting like from across the map and stuff may be a little much, but I think what's it called? Tank mode was so fun. It's such a fun ability to like rocket jump and do stuff like that. And then just the turret form, sure, it's a little more versatile, but Bastion is just bad. Like that, like he puts pressure on the enemy, but once it's so linear, right? It's you do pop turret form, they're gonna wait it out, and then once it's done, then they're gonna come. Like I don't think this rework really came together. It's still like a lot of question mark. Like they kind of just threw things at the wall. And in my opinion, I know I just said it like thematically doesn't make much sense. I would love to see them like lean into that like sticky bomb kind of deal, because that's what I think is the most fun. Ironically, it has displacement pressure. It has some good burst pressure. It's got some fun, like the wall, the bouncing is really fun. Rocket jumping yourself is really fun. Like there's a lot to it. But I think that the rest of his character, it just doesn't like work. It feels like he's missing stuff, and it feels like he's missing real dynamics, which is why his character is like, you know, not very good most of the time. But when he's overtuned, then he kind of becomes like you have to respect him. He's one of those type of characters. So I think Bastion definitely needs another rework. But I think it's hard to really keep that fantasy of the turret without, you know, making him busted or making him too good against certain types of characters. So yeah, definitely a lot to be desired from that Bastion rework kind of question mark. All right, Brig. This is actually, I just remembered that they reworked her ultimate to give it the big shield and the stun back, which is literally just making her closer to what she was in Overwatch 1, except just not as often. I think that like shield bash, a cooldown that's very low and having a stun like that, probably ridiculous, especially in Overwatch 2. So getting rid of that was fine, and I think introducing it back on the ult is probably like way healthier. And honestly, I would put it in like right direction or something, but it's so minor. It's not really that much considering what it is. But I think it did help give Brig like a good like power spike with her ult in Overwatch 2, which introduced some old dynamics back. So I actually really like the rally changes that they did way back in like season 3 or something. I think they were really positive. I know a lot of people were pretty mad about it originally, but I think most people have recognized that it's not that bad. Okay, Cass. This is the amalgamation of all his magnetic grenades. Because they all functionally do very similar things. I mean, he's the same character, right? You can't get close to him or he'll shoot you. That's it. I'll just talk about like, I think the worst iteration of his mag grenade was the one you could chuck across the map and could hinder, because that one just felt random, because it could go so far and just like randomly track onto somebody and take them. I actually think that, you know, right now we have a flashbang with hinder, right? Which is a fine solution. I'm totally fine with that. Just being like a flashbang, like making flashbang a little worse. I think that's totally fine. I think the best version of the mag grenade was when it did a lot of damage, but it was up close, right? And it just did damage. It didn't do hinder. It basically kept the same idea of you can't get close to Cass, or else he will probably explode you because of the grenade. Without like the super frustrating hinder. Now, I didn't like that. I didn't like the magnetic part. I didn't like it honing. I think if it were actually like a skill shot, it would be really interesting. Because it's like he's got this radius around him where you could potentially just take 130 damage and then like die. I think that was like almost there, but you know, we're basically just on nerfed flashbang mode now. So he's the same character. He's gotten a lot of like little quality of life things that make him better, a little tankier. I wouldn't exactly call this reworks. His ult though, I really like his ult changes. Those are fun. Okay. Sombra. We have 3 Sombra reworks in a row. What I'm calling classic Sombra here, that is when she got reworked into what we saw from Overwatch 1, right? So it's translocator, you TP to it, right? Like you put it on the ground, it stays forever. She can be invisible forever. It's just on a cooldown, right? When she goes into stealth. And then hack is like, what, 5 seconds or whatever. This is from Sombra, who was like, basically like, she had invis, like, as a, what's it called? It had a duration. Like, you couldn't just stay invis forever. And translocator also would expire after a certain amount of time. Sombra was worthless back then. Let's be real, right? Before this rework, Sombra was like super duper worthless. So I get it. I think that at the time this was absolutely necessary, but it did introduce that idea of perma invis, and I think that was just not a great idea, right? It did not really work super well. Now, launch Overwatch 2 Sombra is the Sombra with Opportunist, where you could see, or I forgot about that. She could see the enemies through walls, but Sombra did more damage to targets that were hacked, and yeah, she did more damage to the targets that were hacked, and she still had old translocator, and she still had super stealth. And her hacks didn't last as long, right? That's kind of like the TLDR. So she was like supposed to be like less frustrating version of Sombra. I'm going to go ahead and say, like, was that even good in its time? I'm going to say, what are we doing? The reason being is that we're reworking Sombra, but like it didn't really do anything. It really didn't do what they wanted it to. And so I think overall it was just a bit of a failure. It was just like, it was basically just old Sombra without super annoying hack, but she could do a little more herself, right? I honestly, I say, what are we doing? It's basically the same character. I mean, let's be real. It's really basically the same character. It's kind of like power shifted around. They tried, it was, she was more fun, at least a little bit, in my opinion. Passive stealth Sombra, this is what we currently have now. Her stealth is on her passive. It just goes off after a couple seconds. She has virus. Her translocator was changed. Definitely the right direction. I think giving Sombra more more risk rather, for honestly kind of less reward sometimes, was good. Now, to be fair, I hate this Sombra because they keep making her more of an assassin with virus impact damage and all of that. And, we're really feeling the effects of permanent stealth because this character is just really not fun to fight against. Even with hack duration only being like less than 2 seconds, it's still, that's still enough time, especially with virus, right? So, I'm putting it in right direction because I think the translocator changes are really good. But the rest of it, we need to take a look at where she's actually going power wise and they're going to, by the time this video goes live, they might have already done it. But they're taking a look at the duration of her stealth. And I think that definitely needs to be taken into consideration nowadays. But I do think that it made Sombra more fun. Now we need to focus on making Sombra less frustrating, right? Okay. Doomfist, his tank rework. So this is empowered punch, block, seismic slam, and uppercut effectively being put together, although that's not exactly what it is. And this one. I'm going to go ahead, kind of a controversial take. This is great. This is a great rework. It keeps the ideas and what we like about Doom and what's it called? He's got a lot of mechanical expression, although I guess not as much. I know the Doomfist mains are going to be like, kind of like, come on, man, you forgot about Overwatch 1 Doomfist? I didn't. I played a lot of Overwatch 1 Doomfist, and I do love him. But this was absolutely necessary, and I think that the core of what I want to do on Doomfist is still here. executing it, making a game plan, it's just different. But the hyper mobile, super like melee focused character flying around the map, it's all here. And in fact, I think that the block and the empowered punch, they give him a lot of fun dynamics. Now, I think the empowered punch is a little silly, and I wish that there was some like redistribution with Seismic Slam or something like that. But this version of Doom, where you don't have to just like go in the back line and hope you find a silly punch and trade. Like, you can actually be like in and out and doing the things that you probably wanted to do on Doomfist the whole time, but in Overwatch 1 was just like basically impossible to do with all the stuns and everything. It's great. I think that tank really fits Doomfist, as opposed to DPS. And yes, there's a little bit of frustration with, I think, Empowered Punch specifically, but made him way more fun, way more fair for the other people, right? And I think it just generally made his play style way better. More interesting. It's definitely more interesting. Overwatch 1, Doomfist was a lot of just rollout and like really niche tech. But like at the highest level, yes, like I think Overwatch 1 Doomfist might have been more interesting, more engaging, but like that's at the tippy top. It is so hard to do that stuff and be effective with it. Now everyone can do it, but it also he's still is hard and has a lot of expression himself. So it's not just like anyone can cook with this character. You do need to learn this character and get good with him. He's not one you just pick up and play. Sure, he's a little easier to get value out of, but he still has a very healthy skill curve. I love Tank Doomfist. And again, I love and I miss DPS Doomfist, but this was necessary, and I think it was great. Okay. I know that for the past couple months, we've been terrorized by this character, but we do need to go back to 2016, 2017, whenever this rework happened. This made D.Va so much more fun. Oh my god, man. This character was boring. At launch. She was so slow. She just could not do anything. Defense Matrix was on a cooldown, for God's sakes. It didn't have the resource meter. D.Va didn't have micro missiles, so she had very little kill power. She was just like so confusing of a design for tank. And then when they actually like did this stuff with her, they gave her micro missiles, which you can use during Defense Matrix, and they made Defense Matrix resource based. It made this character have so much more depth, so much more fun stuff you could do. She was so much more useful overall. Now, again, in Overwatch 2, she is a bit of a demon right now because I think that is her current balancing. But I think she's still fun in Overwatch 2. Even when she's not the best character in the game. I've been playing D.Va basically the entire life cycle of this game, like map dependent, because I think she still works. As a really interesting, like, trying to play whack-a-mole with your entire team, trying to, whatever threat pops up, you have to go like try and determine which one is the best one to go on and put your resources in. That's a really, really fun game plan that you can do with D.Va, just trying to figure out what to go and what to do. So yeah, I mean, like, especially back in the day, I honestly don't know if there's a better rework that had like the best results for the longest time than this D.Va rework. Because D.Va is, like, especially in Overwatch 1, beloved character. Off tank, like, very, very well respected in pro play. I think a lot of people loved watching D.Va in pro play because she could do damage, but also she had these sick moments where she peeled and ate ultimates, which was really fun, which is much more consistent, not easy to do, but much more consistent with the resource management. I mean, like, when I think of a perfect rework, it's kind of this. Now, again, I'm taking Overwatch 2 a little bit not into account here, but I also still think that she is fun in Overwatch 2 if she has the right balance. When they upped her Defense Matrix, it was extremely boring. Right now, it's extremely unfun because her damage is so high and Juno Speed Ring makes her travel at Mach 1,000,000. But the rework itself was really, really successful and put this character in a much better, healthier spot overall. All right, Pharah, I'm going to go ahead and put it in the right direction. I thought that this rework was gas when it first came out, but once we got into the Pharah meta a couple seasons ago, remember this is her getting the horizontal dash and the what's it called, the passive flight when she uses her boosters, and concussion kind of being changed. I thought it was gas when it first came out because I thought she would be like an in and out Quake style. She can't really take duels and she can't really stay anywhere for a very long time. She's literally just going to like use her super speed and try and do like a bombing mission. That's how I thought she was going to play. I think as we've realized now from the Pharah meta, she plays a lot more like she used to play, which is further back, and uses her increased mobility to actually stay in the air longer than she used to, while having better tools to pressure you at range. So I think that it ended up being, I don't want to say it was a failure, but in her current state, there needs to be more incentive to not play like that. And I don't think that the 225 HP that she has right now actually disincentivizes that. I think it just makes her a little weaker. In fact, it probably incentivizes her more not to make plays like the fun stuff that you kind of think she should be going for. So they definitely need to take a look into why she's able to do that and probably hard nerf the vertical mobility she gets from her passive jump jets, or her passive jets rather. But it's still a good idea. I still think that they did a pretty good job with the abilities themselves. Now they need to like actually push this character in the direction we're really looking for, away from the old Pharah that we were trying to fix in the first place. And I'm sure if we all remember, the Pharah meta is like, yeah, she still needs help, but they've got some ideas. It looks like. Let's just hope they can execute them. Okay. The next entrant into what are we doing tier is shield generator Symmetra. Now, I was not really following professional play or what was really, really good. I wasn't playing much comp when this happened because I was on my PlayStation like 2017 when this came out. Shield generator might be one of the most broken ults I can think of. Giving everybody on your team 75 HP for free that comes back to them without having to get healed. Remember, there's no passive healing regen in Overwatch 1. That's insane. Tracer with that before Brig Pack, you put the shield generator in a spot that they can never get to because you take fights so early that they'll never even like have any chance of getting close to it, and you just kind of like win fights off of that. Yeah, weird. Also, just having two ultimates is so bizarre and weird. Like, I don't know why you would ever really use old teleporter. It wasn't very good. It didn't really have much of a, just trying to get back. You get back to point faster, sure, but it's like it had limited uses and just so weird. And then of course the shield that she like does this and it throws a shield out in one direction forever. Oh my god, how I like such a weird ability to give a support, and it's just so hard to really properly use effectively. Like, I feel like, again, just like Bastion, she was just a mismatch of ideas while they were trying to figure out what they wanted out of this character, right? Just so strange. Did she want to be a support? Does she want to be like a faux tank? Remember, Overwatch 1 didn't, like, at this time, didn't have roll lock. So, she is a support, sure, but she kind of plays, like, all three roles, to be honest with you. She's kind of a support, but she kind of got some tank abilities, and she's got some good DPS on her if she built her beam. And of course, she had all of her turrets. Don't forget, I almost forgot about all of those too. So yeah, just like a weird style of character that just didn't really function very well. So that's why she became a DPS. And again, I think this is going to be another example of this was necessary. This is absolutely necessary. Her swapping roles, having a much more interesting kit, although, getting skill expression with aim because it doesn't lock on anymore. It was just like, she had to aim, which is big. I mean, For real, that's like way bigger than I think people give her credit for. Teleporter being like a much like better useful ability. Also, I think pretty overlooked aspect of like just how much more interesting this character could be in theory. And also, what's it called? Her orbs didn't go through shields anymore. I don't remember. They don't go through shields now, right? But I can't remember if that is when her orbs didn't go through shields. But it made this character like less frustrating and like a lot more skillful on paper. I don't really like Sim that much. I think her design is still a little like, what are we going for here nowadays? But I think that this was like a much more like healthy, good design when it came out, because this version of Sim was just like, what are we doing? We needed to get it going somewhere. And that is, they actually found a niche for this character. And I think she's probably going to stay with this ability set for a while, which I think is perfectly fine. I don't think there's that much wrong with that. So, okay, Orisa. This is my most controversial take. Calm down. Calm down. I know. I think that Javelin and Spear Spin are some of the most fun tank abilities in the game. One, I love the idea that the spear works almost like a Doomfist punch, like she learned from Doomfist, because it's like it hits them, and if they hit a wall, it does more damage. I just think that's fun. I think that's cool. But I think that spear skill shot CC ability, perfectly fine, very fun. It's really big, I understand, but it is still a skill shot at the end of the day. I think Spear Spin is one of the most fun. Like, it is, yes, a mitigation tool, but it's also like an extremely niche like disruption tool. And I wish that it could be used more for disruption rather than just like self-survivability and stuff, because it is really fun. And again, like unique, like trying to use Spear Spin as a disruption. It's like a super duper weak venture drill dash, if you think of it like that way, but you can still do a lot of cool things with it if the situation is correct. And that is always really fun when you're able to get that off. And I think her ult is fine. I don't like how it goes through shields. I feel like that's a lot of the counterplay is gone because of it. I'm not a super big fan of that. But we all know that Fortify is the bane of this character. Like, Fortify needs significant changes, but if they can fix Fortify or change Fortify and get this character playing more aggressively, more, less just less passiveness, right? More thought to every single moment, maybe a little more risk to her survivability. I think this character is probably going to be gas, and I think people are going to start really liking Orisa. If they're able to fix that. I know that they want this like kind of immovable object type character, but I think it is just so beyond unhealthy for the game that it's not worth it. And I think we need to take a look at Orisa. So, yes, I get it. Nobody likes Ori, and a lot of people prefer Halt as an ability. Sure. I think it's gas. I love Ori. I do. I'll say it. I like Ori. Sorry. Shoot me. You can do it. Shoot me. Okay. Hog. I mean, what? I kind of want to say, what are we doing? But like, let's be real. They remove his one shot, and then they make him. You know what? Actually, I'm going to do it. It's straight up bad. He is less interesting. He doesn't have the two types of primary fire, or two types of fire, so he's just like way more boring because they just both do the same thing. They try to get rid of his one shot, and then they gave him another ability that used the most effectively used as a one shot. I was like, as more damage for his hook combo that's on the same cooldown as his hook. So he just has one shot hook still, but he's just way more annoying because he's got this like the breather that he can like always have and just gets a million health over and over. And don't forget that his whole hog was completely it was made into a transformational ult, so he can't get hooked at, or he can use his abilities in it and he can't get stunned out of it. This character is just not fun to play against. And in fact, they made him less fun in the process somehow. I just don't know what was going on. I think this Roadhog rework is probably the worst one they've ever done. It pains me to say it, but like, it does not work. I don't think anything about this rework ended up working. It was just, it's cooked. They cooked it. They burnt it. They put it in the oven too long. Not great. They need to put a little more thought into this one. I know they were trying to fix Hog with the resources they had, and even though they gave him like a new ability and stuff, just there's a lot more work to be done with this character, if not just, hit that little delete button real quick. That one's pretty. I like that one. I've considered that one a lot. Like, I work at Blizzard and I can do that. Okay. Lucio. Now, this is the last one. It's a little anticlimactic because this is hard to call a rework, but I'm going to call it that anyways. Way back in the day, Lucio had, you could not see where his aura was, and it was way bigger. And also, he didn't have infinite wall riding. You would go on the wall and you'd fall off of it, and he couldn't ride backwards and stuff like that. Basically, this rework for Lucio just made him the character that he is today. The extremely fun movement, the skillful like aura, like it's really small, which means that he has to be close and he has to be like there with either his support or his DPS or tank or whatever to get the value out of. So that means you might be playing a little riskier than you used to on Lucio. He can get super fast because of the speed boost when he jumps off the wall. All of the mechanical expression that is currently on Lucio today was thanks to this rework. So definitely think, I honestly, I'm calling it like one rework. I don't quite remember if it all came at one time, but it was very, very early on where Lucio got these kind of changes. So I'm just going to go ahead and call it a rework. You can sue me if you want, but that's it. I think that this was very, 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 very good. And I'm not calling it the best rework in the game ever just because it really wasn't a full rework, but it did change how he played very drastically and increased his skill ceiling like tenfold. It was very, very good. Very, very good early Overwatch rework. Now, if you may notice, I think that there is a healthy, a healthy distribution of old and new, right? So new, old, 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 new, 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 old, 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 new, 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 new. I guess you call that new. I'm not going to go, this is the whole list almost, but like basically in like this section, it's like 3 and 4 old and new. So have they gotten better at doing reworks? I don't necessarily think so. Sometimes they have good ideas. Sometimes they have bad ideas. It happens. It's the same thing with character designs. We've had some really good character designs recently. Some not so good character designs. We've had some good character designs in the old days, but a lot of not so good character design in the old days. So I don't think there's any like trick or anything to it. Character design is hard. And especially with some of the resources that they're working at any given time, they may want to do more things and they can't. And that's just kind of like a sucks, there's not much we can really do about that, or they can really do about that. Really. So anyways, that is my tier list. Please let me know in the comments below. What do you think are the best and the worst reworks? And what do you think of my list? Are there any characters that I left out? There's a very high potential I did. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe while you're at it. I really appreciate it. I stream twitch.tv/Lane Hemingway Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. This is not stream live this time, but I wanted to get something out. And I forgot to stream because I was hard in ranked this weekend, just grinding it. So I forgot to film something for YouTube. Join my Discord if you want to send me a rework idea of your own, a hot take, or a replay code for me to take a look at and give you some feedback on. Okay, Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a good day.